Smile. Morning, everybody. Welcome to, I think, episode number 6 of Merritt in the Morning.
Not even top 5.
That's
all right.
We're, as you've seen, Mayor, we're still working out the bugs. I am your co-host, Brad Klopfenstein. Jim Merritt will be joining us in a minute. Today, our guest from Noblesville, across the county line, is Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We actually have sponsors. So let me go through our sponsor slides here. So we are coming to you recorded today, not live, from Cafe Audrey at beautiful Fort Harrison. Open for breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. Now open for dinner Wednesday through Saturday. So be sure to check them out when you're hanging out around the fort, or if you go to the park, come in here afterwards. Located on Otis Avenue, just east of Post Road. Beer and wine available, which is something near and dear to my heart. Remember, hashtag food at the fort and hashtag why I love Lawrence. Also want to thank our sponsor, Alpsbrow Beer.
That's what's in there?
This is
it's all right.
The mystery of television. It's not Alpsbrow that's in there because we're doing this at 9:15 in the morning. But Alpsbrow, actually, I own that trademark.
Oh, awesome.
So that's why Alpsbrow Beer is one of our sponsors. So anyhow, there we go. There's Mayor Jensen. Mayor Jensen, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
What a beautiful day in Fort Harrison.
It is.
Thanks for letting me come south and look at my passport stamp to go back north here in a minute.
It's warmer down here. It's balmy. Yes. It was like this all the time.
It was raining in Noble. I'm just kidding. It hasn't rained in a long time.
Snowed.
It's horrible.
So anyhow, we wanted to talk to you just about, you've got great things going on in Noblesville. Wanted to talk a little bit about it. Wanted to talk about what it's like to poach a G League franchise.
I have struggled with that verbiage, but we'll go back to that in a minute. Okay. We can talk about that.
So I want to know, we can just start with that.
Yeah.
I want to know the background, and just so our viewers know, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants are going to be moving to Noblesville. The city is building a $36 million development, and that's going to be a 5,000 seat arena?
3,500.
3,500
for a reason. I can talk about that in a minute too.
That's okay. So I would like to talk a little bit about, I assume the Pacers approached you. It might have gone the other direction. And yes, what all went into this?
Well, you can appreciate, Brad, at the end of the day, cities are really focused every single day on public safety, on infrastructure, on creating jobs, and growing the economy. That's what we focus on every single day. You know that from your past and your day job as well. So attracting G League NBA teams was not necessarily in my plan. The Pacers, have enjoyed a relationship in Fort Wayne with their G League team for about 8 or 9 years now. And quite frankly, I think COVID changed their business model. They had to play in a bubble with the G League. They saw some benefits of having G League teams right and adjacent to their NBA affiliate. And so that was a business decision that the Pacers made, that they wanted to kind of explore that. Most of the G League teams across the country are located adjacent to their NBA affiliate. So they actually approached us several months ago, really as kind of a getting to know you, to talk about the Pacers, to talk about sports and entertainment in central Indiana as a whole, which was a great conversation. Then they brought up the fact that they were looking for a new home for their G League team, and they felt that Noblesville was a unique fit because of our growth trajectory, our economic base, interstate access, all the good things that make a community also make a great home for an NBA team. And so that dialogue continued. So there was no poaching. They came to us. And honestly, I'll be very candid with you. From day one, I couldn't quite get my head around it. It was a new, kind of a different concept for me. I am a small government guy. You and I've chatted about that.
Yes.
You appreciate that. And so this was kind of an interesting factor to me. But at the same time, Hamilton County has really dove into the idea of sports tourism. There has been studies done that have shown kind of some missing assets in their arena of sports tourism. That 3,500 seat arena is actually something that's missing kind of in Hamilton County. So there were kind of some stars that aligned. And I think one of the misnomers is that Noblesville is building a $36 million arena for the Indiana Pacers. In fact, we're building it for the city of Noblesville to activate, and the Pacers will be our biggest tenant in there. They will be leasing from us 40 days out of the year. For about $1 million a year for the first 10 years. And then we'll be activating that space with other opportunities, from conventions to graduations to IHSAA events. That'll be programmed 300 plus days out of the year. for the usage in the community. So we're excited. We think it makes sense on both sides. They've been a great partner for us, but from the outset, it had to make sense for both of us. I represent 71,000 people who call Noblesville home. And at the end of the day, we felt like this made sense for both teams, the city of Noblesville and the Pacers. And that's how we're going to march forward.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to ask you to help me get my mind around this like you did. So you've got a team that was drawing 3,000 people a game, which is probably less than Fishers, Hamilton Southeastern,
Depends on the game.
Noblesville Millers,
sure.
Carmel. This venue is also going to be smaller than their gyms.
Yep.
And it costs $36 million.
Yeah. So great point. So our goal is to fill that capacity every single game. So we're looking at about 60,000 people throughout the year that are coming to Noblesville to see this team play. The economic impact of that from year one is about a $20 to $30 million annual economic impact for the city of Noblesville going forward. And then furthermore, Brad, one of the components of the decision that we made is that this team will be renamed the Noblesville Somethings, not Somethings, but they will not be the Mad Ants. Mad Ants, as you all know, is a homage to Fort Wayne and General Matt Anthony, who found Fort Wayne. So they will be renamed by the Pacers, who will be making that decision down the road in the future. And then they will play across the country in 27 different media markets all around the United States and Canada and Mexico. We are the only Noblesville in the United States. There's no other Noblesville anything.
You and Swayze.
I love it. It's great. It's a great distinction to have. And so the impact of that Noblesville name across the country and across North America is huge for us. So those all factored into our decisions. We're going to be funding this out of a TIF designation area, so no residential property taxes will be going to this, and we felt like it was a good economic investment for the city of Noblesville. Welcome, Senator Jim Merritt, to the conversation. Sorry, sir. Good to see you.
Welcome to Cafe.
Oh, this is amazing. I'm treated like royalty down here. So this is great.
So the man with the name on the show, Jim Merritt, just joined us. We got started a little early because there were some time crunches on all three ends. So this worked out best.
Right.
So, Jim, we were just talking about the nuts and bolts of the G League team moving from Fort Wayne to Noblesville and why it makes sense.
I like the name Mad Ants.
Okay,
But
what's going away?
Yes,
So-
exactly.
It'll be there. They will play this season as the Mad Ants. They will play those games at Gainbridge Fieldhouse downtown Indianapolis. Then they will retire that name, and the Pacers will come up with a different name going forward.
Yeah. Well, we've got some great nicknames. My dad was there at the beginning for the Pacers. And we were known as the 500, as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the greatest spectacle in racing. And the name Pacers just came from that, pacing basketball. The Fuel is a wonderful name. The Fever is great.
Yeah.
And so, and I like Indianapolis Indians, and my friend Schumacher has done a great job of cooperating and working with Native Americans in that regard. So I have no doubt, and all the confidence in the world that the Pacers will come up with a great name.
I will. Well, and I laugh because as you all know, in politics, even though they come up with the name, I'll get blamed for by all the people who don't like the name, but that's part of it.
Well,
That's local leadership right there.
Yeah, but local is best.
It is absolutely.
So let me reset. Wait, now where's my share screen? I always forget this when I do this thing. Anyhow, you're watching Merritt in the Morning. I'm your co-host, Brad Klopfenstein. I'm president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. Jim Merritt, former state senator, 30 years in the biz.
We love doing Merritt in the Morning.
We do. And
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Our guest today is Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen. So on the arena, and I guess another question I have is the Fuel are building an arena in Fishers, a similar sized arena.
It depends what they're at least double the size that where they're
Okay, double. Okay, so
That's good to know.
depends on your definition of similar in size.
okay, under 10,000.
That's fair. All right.
So now I noticed you said you're going to have suites that you can sell. So the Pacers G League team is going to be in there 40 days a year. What do you envision for the other 320?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities. First of all, we have a huge youth sports component in Hamilton County. There's been a huge focus on that. There's always more and more need for that. So I think you're going to see AAU tournaments extended into there and different sports arenas. I think you're going to see different conference space that is available. We're becoming a convention hub, a different size convention hub than our friends in Indianapolis are. They're landing big fish. We're kind of landing some medium-sized fish, which is awesome for all of us. Strengthens the entire region. I think you're going to see activation there. I think the IHSAA is going to have some opportunities in there. I think even some different divisions of NCAA tournaments can be played in there as well. So we have no doubt in our ability to program that space the additional 300 days of the year and pull a profit off of it and help continue to invest in Noblesville and Hamilton County in the region.
And this is going to be up by Clip Schmooze.
Yeah, so
it's
it's Ruoff, it was Clips, it was Verizon, it's Deer Creek for all those natives up there.
For old people, it's Deer Creek.
That's right. But actually, there were a lot, yeah. And we're still finalizing some due diligence around that site. We know it's going to be on the east side of Noblesville. One of our first sites was adjacent to Mojo Upfield House there on Bowden Road, but we're still kind of going through some final schematics of that to make sure it makes most sense.
All right. Let me go back to our slide just so our viewers know what the heck they're watching. You're watching Merritt in the Morning, sponsored by Alpsbrow Beer, coming to you live from Cafe Audrey at beautiful Fort Harrison. So now that we've got that out of the way.
Very important.
So
very important.
Jim and I have a mutual gadfly friend who wanted us to ask a question as far as the political subdivisions of Hamilton County. Noblesville obviously leaks into Delaware Township, Fall Creek Township a little bit. Then you've got the school systems, like Hamilton Southeastern is Delaware, Fall Creek, and Wayne, which Noblesville is now going into Wayne. Do you see any need or reason to realign those so that the school systems line up with the municipalities and the townships? And
well, first of all, I think all of us know, whether it be Mount Vernon, where you went. Where did you go to high school?
Rebuff and North Central.
Okay. You take a lot of pride in your school system, and a lot of that school system bleeds into the community. I have been on record since day one. My predecessor, John Ditzler, who you knew well, went on record that I believe everyone who lives in Noblesville should be a Noblesville Miller. I just believe that. And we have an opportunity coming up here as we grow into Wayne Township to have that discussion. I think that discussion is a valuable one. I have talked to Mayor Fadness about it, who also agrees. Hamilton Southeastern, a great school system, is I think 5th largest in the state of Indiana. And I think they're comfortable being that size. If they don't make a change, they're going to be a very large school system. We're looking at probably adding an additional 60,000 residents maybe to Wayne Township. That's a huge impact. I think we should have it. And here's the thing. I think all discussions and all decisions need to be based on factual information. I think we need to have the data in front of us, not just the feeling of community, but the data around tax revenue and what that does. Yes, in a current state of per pupil funding formula, that is beneficial to whoever that school system is, but there's major infrastructure costs that needs to be factored into that as well. I think that decision needs to happen, and I think they need to be Noblesville Millers, but it's not a mayor decision. It's a school board decision. So I think that needs to happen quickly.
Now, are you born and raised in Noblesville?
Absolutely. I am a proud Noblesville Miller.
There you go.
My kids are proud Noblesville Millers. My wife is a teacher in Noblesville school system. So I have a lot on the line.
So I also wanted to ask you about Noblesville has a very nice, historic, intact downtown.
You know, we work hard and be nice.
Be nice.
Right.
Yes, that's
So you're a perfect guest today.
Yeah, well, as I say, that's a rare, and I always said this guy right here is one of the few, not few, but a leader in that motto, and I appreciate it. And there are less and less of them, quite frankly.
Well, that's why I was really excited about this episode, because it's like, all right, we've got 3 generally nice people who can get along and have discussions. So talk to me a little bit about the advantages of having a historic downtown. And then before the show, we talked just a little bit about all the other municipalities kind of north and northeast and working together to do similar things, but yet be unique in what they're offering.
Yeah. Well, I think so many folks now are taking a lot of pride in their community. I think COVID kind of forced that a little bit too, as folks were kind of locked into their homes and their communities. People are kind of reinventing what work, play, live looks like. Noblesville has that historic downtown courthouse square. We've always had it. We will always have it going forward. So many communities in and around the entire donut are investing in that type of concept, but it will never be a 200-year-old this year, actually, Noblesville's bicentennial historic square. So the advantage that we have there is that hometown feel in Hamilton County. And as we grow in Hamilton County in particular, especially folks that come from more rural Indiana, they may like Hamilton County for school systems, infrastructure, business opportunities, but they feel more comfortable in Noblesville because it has a more of a hometown feel. But I say, I am fortunate to sit in Hamilton County that has Carmel has such a unique opportunity with arts and culture and the Palladium and the downtown Carmel area. You're familiar with that area. Fishers and their Mayor Faddis is a great friend of mine in the tech arena and the life science, which we're believing into as well. Westfield with youth sports and Grand Park. We all have amazing assets just in Hamilton County, but I think we have the authentic feel. We have the unmatched downtown that no one else will ever have. We also happen to have a river flowing right through the middle of it. Which is again just an added bonus on that. But I think other communities are starting to emulate, which is an honor.
Well, you mentioned the river. Central Indiana as a whole has done a deplorable job of embracing the White River.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it was polluted, people didn't want to be around it, but we don't have a lot of water in Central Indiana. That's a heck of an amenity, and I'm amazed that more people don't try to develop that riverfront. Do you guys have plans?
Well, I think stay tuned. I think, deplorable is a good answer for the past. I think you have to give credit where credit has due. There's been our entire Central Indiana Ready application round 1 was focused on development of the White River. The Central Indiana has gotten together several years ago in conjunction with our friends in Indianapolis to look at the White River Vision Plan. So I think there is massive momentum around there. We're developing, along with our friends John Hart and JC Hart and their crew, the first ever mixed-use development on the river in downtown is under construction right now. So here in about a year, you're going to be able to live and dine right on the river in downtown Noblesville. And then also, I will say going back to COVID, talk about a influx of folks floating, canoeing, kayaking down the river in Noblesville. It was unreal to drive across the river and see during COVID times, especially people activating that river. The White River Canoe Company, which is right in Noblesville, is just going gangbusters with folks that are on the river today, utilizing it and really appreciating it. So I think that our river's best days are ahead of us.
So where do they launch, and then where do they?
So they launch. You actually meet at a site in Noblesville, and they take you on a bus up to on the north side of Noblesville, almost near Clare, which is a little burg up near Purgatory off of State Road 37
Yeah,
north.
that's where that Lowhead Dam is.
Yes,
right? Okay.
right. You launch right at the Lowhead
Okay.
Dam, and you take off and you go a couple miles all the way down into downtown Noblesville, and you exit just south of downtown Noblesville, and off on River Road. I always laugh because folks always bring their floating cooler, and they start out in a really sophisticated way, and by the time they have floated and had several beverages, and they get to downtown Noblesville, you get some of the best personalities showing themselves right in downtown Noblesville. So it's great.
I love it. I've been asking all the questions.
First of all, for the folks that are watching this, we had previously talked to the Marion Republican candidate for mayor, and he has large plans. But it's nice that we have Mayor Jensen here today because he's done it in a very short amount of time. He has offered great energy to Noblesville. And number one, I've known him since he was a kid, but as well as the fact that good leaders have good people around them. And the mayor's staff is sensational. His ability to attract, you can always know good leaders, quality leaders, productive leaders, when they attract great people to their government. The police chief is terrific. I've known him forever. The public safety director is unmatched with his talent. The economic development team. It's a lot of times, we talk to the individual here, but we also need to recognize the fact that good people have to have good people around them.
Right.
And as well as Mayor Jensen was the executive director for the Indiana Bicentennial Commission, and he had a good run there, and that turned out to be
That was you?
yeah.
Wow.
That
Cheers
turned
to that.
out,
Cheers to
turned out
that.
to be a model for other states,
Yep.
and Illinois and others were calling to see how we did it, because it was Indiana is a big state with 92 counties. It's long and it's wide. And one of the opportunities that the mayor has done has given people in Noblesville is to really understand mental health and to have his own podcast, and I get emails quite often about keeping up with Chris because of all his energy. And he also has tackled long held problems in Noblesville, like transportation and getting from point A to point B in growth. And if you're going to attract people to your city, they've got to be able to get around. And it's a walkable city. And during the summertime, it's nary a time that you don't see a concert down in the meadow on the other side of the river from the town square. Talk to us a little bit, Mayor, about keeping up with Chris.
Yeah, well, thanks for those kind words. You know, and I've learned from the best along the way, and I appreciate your efforts around mental health in particular. I want to address the keeping up thing at the very beginning too. I think I learned early on that you have to be willing to take some risks in this position. And I think Matt Greller, who you know well, the head of, and I'm sure you do too, Indiana Associations of Cities and Towns, AIM, always said the best mayors were the ones that didn't need the job, that were doing it because they love the community. And that has stuck with me from day one. And I think if you can go into the job knowing that, you know, re-election be damned in a way, I'm just going to do what I think is best for the community. That makes leading so much easier. And now I've hit some headwinds on that at times going forward, but
you started off changing the logo of the city.
I still am seeing somebody about that.
Yeah.
So I just,
but that showed me,
yeah.
that showed me that he was willing. There's something called the Table of the Wise at a restaurant in Noblesville.
Yeah.
And a lot of the wise women sit at that table for lunch. And I'm sure that disrupted that table. Pleasant Street, relocating it. The idea of having another way of getting across the river. You've taken risks, and as mayor nowadays, if you're going to compete with Westfield, if you're going to compete with Zionsville, if you're going to compete with Carmel, if you're going to compete with Greenwood, Fishers, and you know, Marion and Anderson. You've got to be a disruptor. You've got to demonstrate something's different with your city to compete. And keeping up with Chris is a great way to have people understand what you're doing.
Well, communication is key. I think all this. When I went into office, there was all this conversation around transparency. That's a real buzzword in politics these days, right? I think transparency was really built out of just a lack of communication. I think if you're willing to be as open and communicate as much as possible with the public about the why are you doing something? Why are you building a new road across the city of Noblesville? If you can explain that, people, they may not ultimately love it or even agree with it, but they can at least understand you and they can understand where you're coming from.
It's the key to politics.
It's the key to politics. And I try to be as open and honest as possible. And I think to your point, being a disruptor in a community, not for the sake of being disruptive, but for the sake of bettering your community. And then furthermore, we're not just competing with Carmel, Westfield, Fishers, Anderson, you name it. We as a region are competing regionally with Denver, with Cincinnati, with Minneapolis. And we've got to stop thinking in these small little silos and start to realize from a regional perspective, if I lose a business to Fishers or Anderson, boohoo for a second, but also great that they're in Central Indiana. That's great for the region. But I think if you're willing to be a disruptor, if you're willing to lean in and explain why you're doing it and take risks, you know, I was worried early. I wasn't worried on, but I was early on. I was going to make tough decisions, and here I am sitting in front of you as an unopposed candidate for re-election.
Right,
and that's unbelievable.
Yes,
you know, because I was told when I changed the logo that I had asphalt for brains and I was done for. That table of knowledge, which I'm not sure how I get dressed in the morning without them telling me how to do it. It's amazing how I do it. But you know what, like even they have come along and you realize, you know, I'm going to do the right thing. And so what, you know, at the end of the day, I took the job because I love the community, not for the financial benefit. You can look at my W-2 statement and know that I went the wrong direction.
Well, you can look at mine too. After 30 years.
I have four small kids at home. I have a wonderful life outside of this job. But I'm doing it because I love my community. I'm going to make tough decisions.
Yeah,
and someone has to.
Yes, someone has to. And Klopp, a lot of people that are in his position in different places are avoiding it.
Yeah,
and we'll pay for it some way of lost population.
When I think you can still do it and be nice too along the way.
Yes,
and I think that is a I think you both know that I'm willing to go in and have card conversations with anybody. I'll go on any show and talk about anything. You can do it without being mean, without being disagreeable. We can agree to disagree ultimately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we
It's
can
kind of a
be
lost
nice.
art
It
in
is a
politics.
lost art. We have to have tough conversations. I think our party has lost the ability to go have tough conversations with folks and explain why we're doing things
Mhm.
and move the ball forward.
And the art of compromise is
Yes.
been kind of lost.
But you know, I don't understand why everything we do in life has to be a compromise. My marriage is a compromise, my kids are a compromise, everything I do, but when it comes to politics, I shouldn't compromise.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
it is, and you are on your way to another term. And what speaking of that, you've got 5 years. Let's just call it. You know, you're unopposed.
Yeah.
A lot like Mayor Fadness.
Yeah.
And as well as Willis is is on his way.
Yeah.
I think John Stair is on his
Yes.
way and
I had lunch with him last week.
Yeah, and Mayor Myers down Greenwood, most of the people who now Carmel, that's gonna be a dogfight.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. We need good conversation, and you know, the idea of keeping up with Chris and the idea of you're being transparent and being open about it. What do you see? Tell us what your state of the city is going to be. You know, you got to have a safe city.
Yeah.
You've got to have safe schools that are creating wonderful students for higher education or some other endeavor. And you want streets to be paved, you want good infrastructure. What do you see beyond, you know, the concrete goals of a mayor? What do you see coming on in the future for your city?
I think, you know, in 5 years, I hope you look back at Noblesville and see a lot of the same. You see a historic downtown that's still a historic downtown that is at 100% capacity with mom and pop retail shops that are thriving and growing. But at the same time, you now have taken parking lots and turn them into mixed use development. So you have even more restaurants, even more shops, and you have even more people living, working, and playing in our downtown. You have
widening the tax.
Yeah, exactly right. You're going to see a river that not only has people floating down it, but people eating on it and people living on it. You're going to see a I-69 corridor that just continues to be full of innovative life sciences jobs of the future and are going to continue to be an economic driver for the state of Indiana. You see a community that has public safety that has completely flipped itself on its head and is now really focused on giving those in our community the hand up that they need, not the hand out, the hand up that they need around mental health services and different partnerships within the community. And I think you have a school system that continues to lead the way. Not only today has the #1 internship program in the state of Indiana, but in 5 years will continue to be an innovative leader around career path development for our students and are directly tied to local businesses that can keep them in the city of Noblesville long term. And you see a community that has finally realigned its cities and its school boundaries to make sure everyone are Millers and are growing at a rapid pace with infrastructure that is keeping up with it at the same time.
Are you willing to give up 141st to 146th Street?
There's a compromise in everything, and I think if Mayor Fadness wants more, no, I'm just kidding. There is compromise in everything, and I think he and I are more than happy to sit down with the schools and sit here and divvy out what needs to be happening. And I know there are emotional attachments around the schools too. And if we need to go find a way to grandfather those folks that are in Wayne Township currently into HSE, that's fine. All those things are possible. I think we need to make the better decision for our community and our students going forward.
Our friend's not going to be like called a gadfly.
It's appropriate.
Hey, as we wrap up, tell us about your family. I follow you on Facebook, on social media, and it's a wonderful story.
They're the best.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
You have a stepson.
I have I have a adopted son.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you clarified.
My oldest son, my wife Julie and I, when we met, he was from a previous marriage, and I adopted him on my 30th birthday in Judge Steve Nation's court, who is a leader in mental health.
Oh, absolutely.
That was 10 years ago. That seems forever ago.
He's a hero.
He's amazing. So CJ is my oldest son. He's 12. And then I have Vivian, who is 8 and is a horseback rider and a travel soccer player right now. I like her mother. And then I have a 6-year-old Hank, who is just into baseball these days and loving life. And then I have a 2-year-old Emmy Kate, the cherry on top of the situation, who we're trying to work through stopping biting at daycare. We've had a lot of discussions around that.
Oh,
She bites when
goodness.
she's mad. She's the fourth kid. She's got to bite her way to the top.
Of course,
So,
of course.
and Julie Jensen is an instructional coach at Noblesville Schools. And so,
What is an instructional?
so every school in Noblesville, every school in Noblesville Schools has a teacher's teacher in it. So she works on curriculum development. She works with teachers on professional development. She goes into classrooms if there are tricky new curriculum that needs to be introduced. She works with
She's a
teachers on
coach.
that. She's a coach. That's what she does, and she loves it. She's finishing up her. I'm spitting everywhere. She's finishing up her master's this month, which has been a year-long process that has added zero value to our marriage. So I'm super excited to have that over with. But good for her for continuing to be a mother of four and a first lady of Noblesville and get her master's. But we are a team in our household. We are a 50-50 partnership in our marriage. I can change diapers and cook and clean just like she can. We are a very modern day family.
Yeah, you can't go to a Noblesville event without seeing the mayor.
Well, I said at the end of the day, especially after hours and stuff, if you see me, and this is a great Ballardism, you usually get a kid or two. Or you get the whole shebang, and that's part of it. I'm a human being, and I have a family to help raise as well. But they're wonderful.
Every
Thank you
time
for asking.
I have breakfast at Rosie's on the square in Noblesville, I see the mayor.
The original Rosie's, by the way,
Yeah.
too. Zionsville and Carmel have Rosie's as well. The original ones in Noblesville.
Yeah, they're a wonderful place, great food, and I really enjoy meeting.
But my family is a package deal, and they are unimpressed with what their dad does. My wife is not a political spouse. We are not in a political marriage. She's the best sounding board for me because I'll come home and say something. And she's like, that makes zero sense. I'm like, oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I need to
Good enough.
reframe that.
Yeah.
And she's just a great check on me.
Well, it's great
So-
to have that citizen touch. It really
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. So thank you for asking about
Yeah,
them.
no problem.
They're wonderful.
So out of respect for your time, we will wrap this up. Thank you very much, Noblesville Mayor Chris Jensen.
Thank you for having me.
being
What an honor.
our guest on Merit in the Morning. And Jim, this is episode 6 or 7.
Yeah, we mix it up. It doesn't
I-
make a difference. Apologize for being late, but Noblesville is in great hands with Mayor Jensen, and look for big things big things to come, but then things have happened. And if you want to keep up with Chris, how do you do it?
Yeah, jensenfornoblesville.com is the political side. Obviously on the city side, cityofnoblesville.org. We have a political Facebook page. We have a city Facebook page. I give out my personal cell phone number, which is 317-509-3134.
You're due.
Non-taxpayer funded cell phone right here. And so I'm always, I would welcome the chance. I always tell people, if you're mad about something, instead of going to Noblesville Chatter Uncensored, why don't you just shoot me a text and let me answer it first?
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was just to finish up. That was one of the things I loved about the Senate is when I got something that I needed to talk to somebody face to face, I went and knocked on their door.
Yeah.
And it would stun people.
Well, and you just have a different relationship when we have a conversation.
Yeah.
So
Hey, thank you very much for tuning in today. We do this every other Thursday. Brad, I appreciate your time. And this has been another episode of Merit in the Morning.
From Cafe Audrey's in beautiful Fort Harrison. Don't forget about that.
gorgeous.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinners.
Yep.
Right.
And
Beer and wine.
And beer and wine.
Beer and wine, and go out and buy yourself some Alps Brow beer.
If you can find it.
If you can find,
It's
well,
very,
we
very
sold
popular.
out race week, so it'll be back in stock any day. Thank you all for watching. Have a great week.